There's a long tradition in America of people power, and no one has done more to document it than the historian Howard Zinn. Listen to this paragraph from his most famous book. Quote, "If democracy were to be given any meaning, if it were to go beyond the limits of capitalism and nationalism, this would not come, if history were any guide, from the top. It would come through citizens' movements, educating, organizing, agitating, striking, boycotting, demonstrating, threatening those in power with disruption of the stability they needed." This son of a working-class family got a job in the Brooklyn shipyards and then flew as a bombardier during World War II. He went to NYU on the GI Bill, taught history at Spelman College in Atlanta, where he was first active in the civil rights movement, and then became a professor of political science at Boston University. There, he and his students sought a more down-to-earth way of looking at American history, and when no book could provide it, Zinn decided to write one. Since its publication in 1980, A People's History of the United States has sold more than 2 million copies. This Sunday night, the History Channel will premiere a 90-minute special, The People Speak, based on Howard Zinn's book. It was produced by Zinn, along with Matt Damon, Josh Brolin, Chris Moore, and Anthony Arnaud.
Let them say what they will.
Actors and musicians bring to life voices of protest from America's past.
All men are created equal.
Performing words and music that have given us, as Howard Zinn says, whatever liberty or democracy we have. Welcome to the Journal.
Oh, thank you, Will.
So history in Hollywood, is this the beginning of a new career for you?
I hope not. No, but I am happy. It is a way of reaching a larger audience with the ideas that were in the book. The ideas that you just spoke about, the idea of people involved in history, people actively making history, people agitating and demonstrating and pushing the leaders of the country into change in a way that leaders themselves are not likely to initiate.
What do you think these characters from the past that we will see on the screen, what do they have to say to us today?
Well, I think what they have to say to us today is think for yourself. Don't believe what the people up there tell you. Live your own life, think your own ideas, and don't depend on saviors. Don't depend on the founding fathers, on Andrew Jackson, on Theodore Roosevelt, on Lyndon Johnson, on Obama. Don't depend on our leaders to do what needs to be done, because whenever the government has done anything to bring about change, it's done so only because it's been pushed and prodded by social movements, by ordinary people organizing, by, Lincoln pushed by the anti-slavery movement, Johnson and Kennedy pushed by the Southern black movement, and maybe, hopefully, Obama today, maybe he will be pushed by people today who had such high hopes in him and who want to see him fulfill those hopes. No, traditional history creates passivity because it gives you the people at the top, and it makes you think that all you have to do is go to polls every 4 years and elect somebody who's going to do the trick for you. And no, we want people to understand that that's not going to happen. People have to do it themselves, and so that's what we hope these readings will inspire.
One of my favorite sequences in here is when we meet Genora Dollinger. Tell me about her.
She was a woman who got involved in sit-down strikes of the 1930s. Those very dramatic moments when workers occupied the factories of General Motors in Flint and wouldn't leave, and therefore left the corporations helpless. But this was a time when strikes all over the country galvanized people and pushed the New Deal into the reforms that we finally got from the New Deal. And Genora Dollinger represents the women who are very often overlooked in these struggles, women so instrumental in supporting the workers, their men, their sweethearts, and Genora Dollinger just inspires people with her words.
She was only 23 when she organized.
Amazing, yes.
Workers overturned police cars to make barricades. They ran to pick up the firebombs thrown at them and hurl them back at the police. The men wanted me to get out of the way. You know, the old protect the women and children business. I told them, get away from me. The lights went on in my head. I thought, I have never used a loudspeaker to address a large crowd of people, but I've got to tell them there are women down here. I called to them, cowards! Cowards! Shooting into the bellies of unarmed men and firing at the mothers of children. And then everything became quiet. I thought, the women can break this up. So I appealed to the women in the crowd. Break through those police lines and come down here and stand beside your husbands and your brothers and your uncles and your sweethearts. I could barely see one woman struggling to come forward. A cop had grabbed her by the back of her coat. She just pulled out of that coat, and she started walking down to the battle zone. As soon as that happened, there were other women and men who followed. That was the end of the battle. When those spectators came into the center and the police retreated, it was a big roar of victory.
That's Marisa Tomei as Genora Dollinger. What do you think when you hear those words?
Yeah. First, I must say this, Bill. When my daughter saw this, and she heard Marisa Tomei shout to the police, cowards, cowards, my daughter said, a chill went through her. She was so moved. And so when I see this, and I've seen this so many times, and each time I am moved, because what it tells me is that just ordinary people, you know, people who are not famous, if they get together, if they persist, if they defy the authorities, they can defeat the largest corporation in the world.
When I was last at the National Portrait Gallery in London, I was struck all over again by how the portraits there were all of wealthy people who could afford to hire an artist. It's like when you go to Egypt and you see the pyramids and the tombs, you realize that it was only the wealthy people who could afford to consider their legacy and have the leisure time to do what they want to. We know almost nothing about the ordinary people of Egypt, right?
Exactly. I remember when I was going to high school and learning, it was such a thrilling story to read about the Transcontinental Railroad, the meeting of the two, Union Pacific, the Golden Spike and all of that. But I wasn't told that this railroad was built by Chinese and Irish workers who worked by the thousands and long hours. Many of them died in sickness and overwork and so on. I wasn't told about these working people. And so that's what we're trying to do in this documentary. That's what I tried to do in the People's History of the United States, to bring back into the forefront the people who created what was called the economic miracle of the United States.
One of your producers of this film is Matt Damon. And I understand that when Matt Damon was in the 5th grade, he took a copy of this book into his teacher on Columbus Day and said, "What is this? We're here to celebrate this great event, but 2 years after Columbus discovered America, 100,000 Indians were dead, according to Howard Zinn." He said, "What's going on?" Is that a true story?
It's true. Not all stories are true, but none of this is true. Matt Damon, when he was 10 years old, was given a copy of my book by his mother. They were next-door neighbors of ours.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were next-door neighbors in the Boston area, in Newton. And Matt would say that he and his brother, Kyle, they'd wake up sometime in the middle of the night and see a light on in my study where I was writing this book. So they were in on it from the beginning. So yeah, Matt knew the book early.